I've been sewing for about 3 years now, and I've gotten to document that journey on YouTube, so it's cool to see how much I've learned and have yet to learn. I've been reflecting on what it is about sewing that I love so much. I love creating something to show off to the world, and preferably for it to be something that looks good. And I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting what I make to be beautiful, but I realize that the moments when I focus too much on the end result, I take away from the real joy of sewing, which is the process. I've realized recently that creating is only really fun when I feel present in my work, when I actively listen to my creativity and try my best to approach each step as something to be loved and cared for and nourished. Something I struggle with a lot is how lonely creating can sometimes feel. But something that's helped me is realizing how much of my work is influenced by the world around me, by the teachers who have entered my life and taught me the best way to sew a dart, the Pinterest board inspirations, comments on my YouTube videos by you all, the conversations I have during my sewing breaks, my culture. And truly, my creative work is this constant conversation with myself and the universe and what I'm trying to communicate with the world through my craft. And the more intentional time I spend on this rose I have chosen, the more I understand it, and the more it understands me, and somehow the more I understand myself. At the end of the day, I realize it is more than enough to love what I create simply because of this really incredible journey that I went on with it. A journey that made my soul so happy and has somehow become a part of me. I hope you listen to your intuition, let go of your fears and expectations, and create simply because the process of making something so uniquely your own is a once-in-a-lifetime feeling.